Welcome to our discussion. Today we're diving into China's extensive footprint in Africa and whether that should raise eyebrows in the West.
Absolutely, it's a fascinating topic. So, we're looking at over 20 years of engagements, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the past 2 decades, China has invested billions in transforming Africa's infrastructure. It's really reshaping the continent in terms of roads, railways, and even ports.
Yep, I see that. And it's not just infrastructure, is it? There's also a deeper political and diplomatic push.
Right, right. It's like China is building more than just bridges and railways. They're building enduring relationships. They've been working closely with African governments to secure diplomatic support, which is crucial for, expanding their global influence.
That's interesting because it raises questions about the balance of power. How do you think this deep diplomatic support plays into Africa's position on the global stage?
Well, Africa's strong diplomatic support for China has really shifted the dynamics. It's almost like a mutual benefit scenario. African nations receive developmental aid and infrastructure, while China gains political allies and market access.
Yeah, exactly. But here's a thought. While the benefits might be appealing to African leaders, there's growing concern about the political leverage China might be gaining.
True, and that's where the lending practices come into play. Chinese funding often comes through loans that, critics argue, could lead the borrowing countries into debt traps.
Right, the cost of Chinese lending is a hot topic. Some say it's an investment, while others see it as a snare.
Yeah, it's like a double edged sword. On one hand, Africa gets the capital it desperately needs, but on the
Exactly.
other, countries might have to navigate steep repayment costs later.
Which brings up the worry for the West. Is this debt infrastructure a strategic maneuver against Western influence?
Some argue it might be. China's only overseas military base in Africa is a case in point. It's as if China's saying, hey, we're not just here to do business, we're here to stay.
Yes, I get that. Exactly. And that military presence isn't just symbolic, it's also strategically significant. It adds a layer to the conversation that goes well beyond economics.
Absolutely. It suggests a shift where power isn't confined to traditional Western strongholds anymore. We're seeing a
Right.
recalibration of influence, especially in regions with rich, untapped potential.
Now, there's also this interesting element how local satirists in Ghana are using humor to push back against China's extensive influence.
Oh, for sure. It's like they're not just passive recipients, they're actively critiquing and in a way resisting the narrative.
Indeed, that's a clever twist. I find that fascinating because it shows there's also a cultural commentary aspect. The humor here acts almost as a subtle protest against unbalanced power dynamics.
Exactly. It's like a grassroots counter narrative. Even when the infrastructure is impressive, there's a clear undercurrent of skepticism about the political strings attached.
Absolutely. And then there's the digital side, right? China isn't stopping at physical structures. They're also delving into digital infrastructure.
Yes, that's a key point. China is investing heavily in building Africa's digital framework, which is crucial for both economic and political connectivity.
Right, that really broadens their influence. So, by integrating digital networks, they're not only shaping physical landscapes, but also controlling information and, in a sense, the future technological environment.
Exactly. It's like they're setting up a digital ecosystem that can favor their own tech and standards, which might in turn marginalize Western tech companies.
That's a strategic long game. This whole mix really puts the West in an interesting position, doesn't it? Because while the West has long dominated much of the digital and financial sectors, Africa is showing signs of a shift.
Definitely, it's a compelling shuffle of alliances. And while many in the West argue we should be wary, it's also important to note that not all of Africa's moves are solely dictated by China.
True, that's a good nuance to remember. While there is rising influence, many African nations view these projects as beneficial, so it's not simply a zero-sum game.
Exactly, but there's still a debate about whether the long term implications, especially political ones, might undermine Western strategic interests.
Yes, and that debate is heated. Here's a challenge though. Some argue that the West should be more proactive in investing and building its own partnerships in Africa instead of just worrying about China.
That's a fair point. It's not really about fear alone. It's more about understanding, adapting, and maybe even rethinking how partnerships are formed globally.
Right, adaptability is key. I agree. If the West can, say, leverage its own strengths to offer competitive alternatives, perhaps in technology or sustainable investments, it might level the playing field.
Yeah, it's like facing the challenge head on instead of assuming that China's presence is solely a threat.
Exactly. But I do wonder if we're underestimating the soft power dynamics here. China's approach has been less about overt coercion and more about building long term trust based relationships.
That's an important observation. Their no strings attached narrative, despite the controversial debt aspects, has resonated with many. It's like offering a lifeline to
Yeah, it's
underinvested
persuasive indeed.
regions.
Still, while that narrative holds appeal, it might also come with hidden costs, such as um, potential compromises in governance or even dependency on external powers for critical infrastructure.
True. And here's where I might respectfully challenge that perspective. While the debt and dependency issues are valid concerns, some research suggests that not all loans lead to dire outcomes. It's a mixed bag.
I see your point. Right. It's a nuanced take. Some African nations, by accepting these loans, are truly getting what they need for development, while others may indeed be risking strategic overdependence.
Exactly. It really depends on how the funds are managed and the long term political oversight in these countries.
Yes, management is key. And then there are questions about how this reshapes perceptions globally. The West might need to consider not only competition but also collaboration.
Absolutely. In today's globalized world, it's less about us versus them and more about how different models can coexist or even complement each other.
That's exactly right. So, in wrapping up, do you think the West should be genuinely worried, or is it more a sign of shifting alliances and opportunities for new partnerships?
I'd say the West should be alert and adaptive, but not overly alarmed. There are risks, sure, but also potential for synergy if policies are
Indeed, that's a
smart.
balanced view. Right, because if the West fails to engage meaningfully, it might miss out on the opportunity to shape this new landscape.
Exactly. It's about strategic engagement, not just defensive posturing. And understanding that Africa's relationship with China is complex and multi layered, not a simple colonization model.
Definitely. Well put. The key takeaway is that transformations on the African continent, driven by these massive investments and diplomatic shifts, call for a thoughtful, balanced response from all fronts.
Agreed. It's a dynamic scenario full of challenges and also opportunities. And as always, staying informed and engaged in the dialogue is the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for this deep dive. Always an enlightening chat when we unpack these layers together.
My pleasure. Looking forward to the next conversation on these global shifts.